Happy New Year, everybody. Good morning and welcome to the January 2024 LEA Special Education Point of Contact webinar. A downloadable copy of today's presentation is available for download through GoToWebinar. To access the document, expand the handouts menu and select the icon, then select download. We'll give everyone a couple more moments to get logged in and then we'll get started. Again, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the January LEA Special Education Point of Contact webinar. My name is LaShonda Wilson, and I am an Education Program Specialist here at OSSE. I'm joined by my OSSE colleagues across multiple divisions as we present content pertinent to policy, monitoring, systemic supports, and professional development for LEA SPED POCs. We'll begin this morning with policy reminders and updates and the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, IDEA monitoring and updates. We'll segue into transportation reminders and updates and special programs reminders and updates, followed by non-public placement reminders and updates, and teaching and learning reminders and updates. We'll conclude with announcements and reminders. OSSE is always pleased to bring this webinar to you monthly. Our divisions coordinate to share the most important information to support you in your roles as LEA Special Education Points of Contact. We hope you find this information today helpful. It's our aim to centralize resources and supports for you to easily reference in your day-to-day activities. I'll hand it over now to Christy Weaver-Harris to review policy reminders and updates. Christy?
Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. I'm going to do a quick couple of slides about the role of the SPED point of contact. Next slide, please. So in the fall, OSSE published a resource that provides a role description for the special education point of contact, which is you. This was to support LEAs in identifying appropriate staff to carry out special education organizational operations, be the liaison with OSSE, and ensure implementation of all facets of special education. So this breaks down responsibilities and activities in terms of data and information management, compliance activities, and training and development. And this is available on our website. I believe it's on our monitoring website, but it's linked right here. I'll drop a link in the chat once I'm done. Next slide, please. So, of course, the responsibilities of a SPED point of contact can be shared across multiple people at your LEA, but really you need to be designating a single touch point for between OSSE and your LEA. You should be leading or at least integral in the development of internal LEA policies related to all things special education. So statewide data systems and data submissions to OSSE, disseminating information from OSSE to others within your LEA, and that includes changes in policy, new guidance, new training opportunities, things like that. Resolving non-compliance, and you should be escalating issues to OSSE or escalating questions to OSSE. Folks within your LEA should really be coming to you before reaching out to OSSE. And if they are reaching out to OSSE, you should be involved in that communication. So I say this because we've seen a pretty significant increase in the number of questions or issues that are being raised to us by non-SPED points of contact about SPED issues that you're going to want to be aware of. And this is usually it's staff who have either like bypassed the SPED point of contact or have just been reaching out to folks in the hopes of getting their questions answered, which I certainly can appreciate. But this does lead to either incomplete information or misinformation being shared at the LEA or the school level because sometimes context is missing. I strongly encourage you to have an escalation protocol in place in your LEA that includes triaging these kinds of questions at the LEA level before you come to OSSE. Oftentimes, I am able to advise as to state level requirements and generally IDEA requirements, but I cannot tell folks at a school building or within an LEA exactly how they should be doing something. I can tell you that a PWN is necessary to be issued, but I cannot tell you what the content of that PWN should be. So you want to make sure that you're developing these internal protocols so that you are included in these communications before they get to OSSE. Next slide, please. So this is a list of contacts at OSSE for a variety of special education issues. And this is a slide that we've updated. It's usually included in like our appendix area in this slide deck, but I've updated it to make sure that it includes a few new folks on here. Please make sure you're contacting the appropriate point of contact. Something else that we've noticed at OSSE is that multiple OSSE staff are receiving the same question from the same person or from a singular LEA. We all generally coordinate together, which is why it can take a little while to get back to you. And I know that you are moving very quickly and OSSE does not always move as quickly as you need it to. But if people are sending the same question to multiple folks at OSSE, it's a high risk that you're going to get multiple different answers, and that's not going to be useful for anyone. So here's the updated list for folks. If you have parents who have questions, please make sure that you are referring them to our existing parent support avenues. So like the Special Education Hub to AJE. You can also have the parent contact Jasmine Fleming. She's on my team and she provides direct parent supports. Next slide, please. So one thing that I really want to highlight here is make sure that you are asking the right POC, the right question. So an important thing to do is to differentiate between a policy or a program question and a systems question. This happens a lot. It's a hard thing to determine, and I realize sometimes folks are just trying to get an answer or get a quick answer, so they contact who they think might respond, or they don't realize that their question is a policy question, which is why I'm asking for you to take a moment and consider what your question is before you ask it. Because this often ends up with incorrect or delayed answers for you. So here are some examples of what may be a policy question or a program question or a systems question. So system questions must go through the OST. I know that you guys are all familiar with that. One example would be ESY eligibility is a policy issue, but documenting ESY eligibility is an OST question. Same with like PWNs. When to provide a PWN is a policy question. How to create the PWN document is an OST question, but how to write the PWN is a question that should really be answered internally by your LEA, either through LEA policy or protocol, or even your general counsel. So I can tell you when a PWN is required. Folks in the OST can tell you how to create that document in the system. But in terms of what you actually write in that document is going to be an LEA level determination. And something that I do want to remind you strongly is it is never appropriate to put student USI or student PII or student information in an email to OSSE staff. Like that, we get it a lot. Please make sure that you are protecting student information when you are emailing with OSSE. I think that's everything from me. If you have any policy related questions, please feel free to shoot them to me over the next month. Next month, I'm going to be talking about ESY. So please make sure if you have any ESY specific questions, go ahead and send them to me now. I see a question in here about OSSE supporting primary and secondary disabilities. So within Chapter 30, we do allow for an IEP team to designate a primary and a secondary disabilities. You're able to do that within the system. I do get some questions about this, so it feels like perhaps we might need to issue some guidance on it. I'll reach out to the person who's asking this question to have a little bit more of a conversation about it, because I know that some LEAs are experiencing difficulties with this. And also related to student PII, placement email protocols are still in place. I know Katie Rita is on this call. So if you are communicating with Katie's team, the typical communication protocols for her team are still in place. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to pop them in the questions box. I'll be keeping an eye on that for the rest of the webinar. Thanks, LaShonda. Back to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Christy. I'll turn it over now to Karen Morgan Donaldson to review IDEA monitoring reminders and updates.
Thank you, LaShonda. Good morning, everybody. Next slide. Okay, this slide provides information about what compliance reports are currently open in DC CATS. We want to take a moment to thank all of you who have worked hard to close out their open findings in DC CATS. Just a quick shout out that we recognize your effort and want to acknowledge your hard work, so thank you. If you are unsure of the status of your LEA's reports or you have any questions, please reach out to Deborah Melville. I know all of you are familiar with Deborah, and her email is on this slide. Okay, next slide. Okay, OSSE's transition from DC CATS, which is our corrective action tracking system, to Stepwell, which is the new system we will be using, will be delayed until further notice. So please continue to utilize DC CATS for monitoring activities as appropriate. Stay tuned for updates about Stepwell during the next monthly special education point of contact webinar. So we hope to have an update about timelines next month for you. And our next slide. Okay, as the state education agency, OSSE is required to serve as the ex officio trustee to assist in providing materials for students with visual impairments. Each year, Congress appropriates funds to the American Printing House to conduct an annual census for students with visual impairments in each state and to provide students materials. So if you have a student that qualifies as having a visual impairment, either as their primary disability, secondary disability, or as part of a multiple disability, please contact Dana Hodges at the email listed here. And that's pretty much it for me. If you have any questions, go ahead and drop them in the chat, and I will be monitoring that. And back to you, LaShonda.
Thanks, Karen. I'll turn it over now to Katie Rita for transportation reminders and updates. Katie?
Hi, good morning, everyone. I know I'm not your typical transportation voice, but our transportation folks are busy helping to get our kids to school this morning, dealing with closures and delays across multiple counties. So I am here to provide them a little bit of support. They have a new student transportation family handbook that is linked in this slide. So when you go into the handout, click on that link, and it's going to bring up some information that's helpful to parents and families and a resource that they can utilize related to their students' transportation for this current school year. So please take a look at it. Please share with families and students who have questions or are looking for additional information. Thanks, LaShonda.
Thank you, Katie. All right, next up, we'll hear from Rita Larkins with special programs, reminders, and updates. Rita?
Thank you so much, LaShonda, and good morning, everyone. We're going to start off with just kind of restating a little bit of how you get support for special programs. Obviously, there is the OSSE support tool. You can go in and create an OSSE ticket. We are working diligently to respond to your initial ticket within 8 business hours. Next, you have the ability to request OSSE office hours. So we have a office hours link that you can connect with one of our support people to get one-on-one help with a problem or issue. And that's available via our bookings.com link. No, not the one for vacation, but the one to be able to book a session with one of the OSSE staff to walk through your issue. And then, as always, we have LEA training. Something new that we have been doing, we've been doing requests for on-site or virtual training. So if you want to have a training with just your team and one of our trainers, we can set that up so that you can have that one-on-one time to get questions answered from your team. And we've been going out to school locations and providing that service. We also have the self-paced training that's available in our LMS system, so that you can go there and you can find videos on any of the trainings that you haven't had a chance to take or that you want to review again. So that self-paced training is available in our LMS system. Also in our LMS, we have our standard scheduled trainings, which you can find a number of topics. All of the offerings are available in our standard training schedule. Next slide. I want to also restate how you get access for special programs. Of course, everyone knows at this point that prior to any of your staff being able to access special programs, they must appear in the IDS tool, and that's for school staff and also non-public. So there's a tool also for non-public in being able to get into special programs. So we are, this also allows staff to get access to the LMS, where I mentioned you'd be able to get a lot of the special program self-paced training. So the LEA data manager can update that all staff. That includes adding new staff that are just coming on board with the LEA. So as new staff are continuing to join your LEA, you'll need to update them in the all staff. And once they are updated, it takes the next business day for the staff to be able to have access in special programs or LMS. Next slide. I want to talk about now, I want to transition into some of the updates that you've seen yet, or that you should see now in special programs. And I just want to talk through a couple of those. We've had a number of tickets about it. Those issues have been resolved. And I just want to walk through just a couple of important points for you. First is the digital signature updates. The digital signature tool has been updated so that you can send it to parents. You can also send it to staff. The important thing about the using digital signature is that you must keep the document in review when you're sending it out to parents, guardian, or staff. If you finalize the document, you actually close off the ability for the parent to sign it. So we've gotten a number of tickets about not being able to use that effectively. So the updates are there, but we want to make sure that you know the documents have to go out and review status in order for the parents to be able to sign it. After your documents are signed, we also notice that a lot of folks are skipping the document delivery. That is super important, where you're documenting the outcome of those documents. So you want to make sure you do that before you finalize your document. You want to document whether the parent gave consent or did they agree or not agree. So you want to make sure you document that in special programs. Next slide. The other thing that you will see on the cover page of the IEPs in special programs is you will see the primary and secondary disabilities displayed on the cover page of the IEP document. So that has recently been updated, and you should be able to see that information now. And as soon as I finish up these slides, I'm going to go in and respond to a number of these questions that I'm seeing about what I am presenting. So let me go to the next slide and I'll come back to your questions. Staff profiles. Staff profiles are very important. We've done a number of sessions to help our folks get set up. And it's important because the direct services in the staff profiles displays the services that the provider can offer. So for a large number of tickets that we are receiving where providers cannot document services, we're noticing that the provider has not been set up with the services that they actually provide. So you want to make sure you are in the profile for your staff and that you are adding that direct service part B. Now this includes special education teachers and of course related service providers. So if your special education teachers are doing specialized instruction, they will need to have that added as a direct service under their profile. Next slide. Also under your staff profile, you will see the updated list to be able to update license information for related service providers. So this can be updated now on the profile, and it now contains the appropriate list. So that has been recently updated. And the expectation is that folks can now go in and update this license information, and it even has a place here for any additional notes, and you can attach an actual document into the profile. Next slide. Another big update that happened in special programs, you will notice that the service capture options have been updated for the following IEP services. So for behavior support services, social work services, counseling, and psychological services. So when your providers go in to log those services, they will notice here that the areas covered are more aligned to those particular IEP service categories. Next slide. Okay, and just a reminder about student transfers. So the student transfer process starts when a student becomes stage 4 at the school they are going to be attending. So the automation completes when the historic data and documents appear in the entering school. If the process is interrupted, the historical data and documents will not transfer. So just a little bit about how the transfers work in special programs, that the student has to be at a stage 4 for you to be able to see their documents. And then we start the transfer process so that all of their documents will go over to that new LEA in special programs. And I believe that is the last slide. I'm going to respond to some of the questions in the OST, and I'm going to turn it back over to you, LaShonda.
Okay, thanks, Rita.
All right, I think that LaShonda's sound went out, so we are going to do our best to move over to the next set of slides, which
Hi,
is
Christy, I'm sorry.
Oh, there you go. Okay, good.
My apologies. My apologies. I was under the impression that Rita was going to share aloud, but I think she means she's going to go ahead and add those responses in the actual question segment. Sorry about that. My apologies, folks. I'll go ahead and pick it back up. Thanks, Christy. So we'll go ahead and keep moving, folks. If you did ask questions in the actual questionnaire box, please reference any responses that you're receiving from Rita Larkins in that actual area. One other set of points just to reiterate: if you have questions regarding special programs, please, please, please be sure to submit those questions through the OSSE support tool. I know Rita mentioned it in her review just a few moments ago, but please be sure to submit your questions into the OSSE support tool. That is not a policy-based question or a monitoring-based question, so we won't be able to necessarily route your answers to your questions in most cases accordingly. So please be sure to submit them into the OSSE support tool ticket to avoid any delays with CIO being able to get back to you and provide you with a response to those questions. Okay, we'll go ahead and keep it moving now to our non-public placement reminders and updates, and we'll be hearing again from Katie Rita. When you're ready, Katie, go ahead and give us your updates.
Awesome, thanks. Good morning again to everyone. I have some non-public placement reminders and updates for you. Next slide. So this is a slide that we presented quite a few times regarding contacts for non-public school support. This is to piggyback off of Chrissy's earlier slides regarding escalation processes and ensuring that the right question is going to the right person. Please take a look at the different points of contacts that are listed here and what you should be contacting them about. It's sort of the same idea of Chrissy's table that she put on there. You know, like if you reach out to Tessa about a funding question, she's going to be able to tell you about dollars and cents, but she's not going to be able to tell you how a kid got somewhere or why that decision was made, or can we make an exception to a decision regarding a student's placement or service location, right? So just please be mindful when you're doing and looking at questions and you're deciding who is the right person at OSSE, please refer back to this slide. And as the last bullet point says, if you're ever unclear about who you need to contact at OSSE about an issue regarding students in non-public schools, please feel free to reach out to me directly, and I'm happy to route you to the correct person if it's not me. Next slide, please. The next few or a couple of slides are resource guides for schools that are considering students who might need additional support, but maybe those supports are not necessarily special education related. So we do get, you know, a lot of questions from LEAs about students who are having attendance concerns, or students who are at risk of being trafficked or have substance abuse, and not all of those concerns can be solved by putting a student in a non-public school, right? So we wanted to make sure that we started to pull resources that are readily available to LEAs within the district from other agencies in a place where you can view them. So I'm not going to go into detail about all of them, but I do have links and contact information in there. So take a look at the different programs that are offered under PASS, and especially take a look at the eligibility if you have a student who's eligible or not, but might be able to benefit from the program. OSSE does make available to LEAs trainings regarding child sex trafficking and exploitation awareness. However, the Office of the Attorney General staff that does the presentation is also available to do presentations to your school directly. If you are finding that you have students across your grades who need support or who are going to need sort of support in this area. And in the past, not only has the Office of Attorney General done presentations directly to school staff to help educate your staff on warning signs and things that they should be aware of, but they've also been able to do presentations to students to help give them information and help them understand risks either for themselves or for their friends. Next slide, please. Please make sure that staff and students in your school building know that the district does have 988 availability. This was rolled out a couple years ago through the mayor's office. Anyone who is experiencing mental health, substance abuse, or suicidal crisis is able to dial 988 and connect with individuals that are locally operated in crisis centers to get supports. And also family and friends can also call that if you're worried about a loved one who might need crisis support. The last two are resources that are offered by our sister agencies. So please take a look if you have students who are struggling with any drug or alcohol concerns. DBH does have treatment services that are available to our young people in the district. Additionally, CFSA offers family success centers in various wards throughout the district that are able to offer services to families and students as sort of a one-stop shop for a variety of different services depending upon the needs of the actual community to which the Family Success Center is located. So please feel free to click on those links and take a look at these resources and share them with families and students and hopefully be utilizing them when you're thinking about any additional supports your students might need in relation to their education or things that maybe are outside their education in your school building. Lastly, next slide, please. Just some key reminders. We're at the beginning of the new calendar year. So I just want to do some quick reminders regarding change in placement and change in location cases. Please take a look at these. And when you're thinking about sort of submitting cases or you're wondering why maybe things are taking a little bit longer, make sure that you are connecting with your parents in advance of submitting cases and before meetings so that they're able to understand sort of any processes or procedures or purposes of meetings and they don't feel necessarily blindsided or not feeling like they truly understand or feel prepared to participate in the meeting. OSSE always reaches out to parents, but you guys talk to these folks every day and you have really good relationships with them. So please leverage those when you're thinking about submitting these cases. Remember that during the service location process, we need our LEA partners to support us in making sure that parents and students are completing visits, supporting parents with transportation concerns, ensuring that parents are responding to emails and phone calls from OSSE and non-public schools. Without your support, we're not always able to complete admissions processes in non-public schools, and that only delays students from further getting the services that they need and the acceptances in those programs. So please be reminded that your participation and involvement is happening before meetings, during the process, and then after when we're holding those IEP meetings, which is the last two bullet points. Please make sure that you're working with your school staff because not all the LEA special education points of contact are not always the ones who are directly working with the family. So please feel free to sort of remind folks that it is a long process, but if we're working collaboratively together, we can get things done. When we're not, it can cause delays in students getting the services that they need, and that's not something anyone wants. If you have any questions about the change in placement process, LRE, or anything else regarding non-public school students, please feel free to reach out. And thank you.
Thank you, Katie. That's great information. I did just want to share out a response to a question I just shared. If you are on your dashboard where you're looking in terms of your key on your screen that has all the information in terms of polls, handouts, chats, you need to click on the arrow for the handouts key, expand that, and then once you've expanded it, there's an arrow underneath that says either drag and drop, or above it, you'll see January 2024 LEA SPED POC webinar. Click on that key and you'll be able to actually download the handout. The handout actually has all of the links to the information that's being shared by our team in there. So please be sure to download the PDF itself. It has the links in there. Thanks so much, and we'll go ahead and keep things going. We'll hand it over now to Buell Yim for teaching and learning reminders and updates. Buell?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Bial Yim, Training and Technical Assistance Specialist for Special Education from Division of Teaching and Learning. Next slide, please. Continued reminder and also just letting everybody know about the dyslexia awareness training as part of the DC Law 23-191 Addressing Dyslexia and Other Reading Difficulties Amendment Act of 2020. This interactive course is required for all educators serving kindergarten through grade 12 who participants can earn up to 16 professional learning units for completion of all 3 modules. And so please register at the link that's included in the handout. And if you have any questions, please contact Dustin Tamsin at dustin.tamsin@dc.gov. Next slide, please. Again, continued information on the implementation of DC Law 23191. Over 13,961 educators established accounts in OSSE's LMS, and 12,880 educators have completed the dyslexia awareness module. To note, the dyslexia awareness modules are an annual requirement, and the next modules will be released in February. Also, the new modules will be differentiated for pre-K, K-5, and adolescent to adult learners. It's time for the mid-year screening for K-2 students. You can find more information on universal screening via Universal Screener data analysis training available in the OSSE LMS as well. And if you have any questions, if you need more support, please contact Dustin Tamsin at dustin.tamsin@dc.gov. Next slide, please. Division of Teaching and Learning is very excited to announce the trainings on adolescent literacy, addressing learning gaps and with syllable instruction. The first offering is an opportunity for 4th to 12th grade teachers, literacy coaches, special educators, multilingual educators, and administrators just undergoing training on multi-syllable word instruction by the literacy architects. And this training includes approximately 6 hours asynchronous coursework and some time dedicated to applying learned skills in their classrooms, which is also another 6 hours, and opportunities to attend 2 90-minute synchronous sessions to explore and practice instructional routines in more detail. And the total time commitment for this training will be approximately 12 to 15 hours. And the link for registration will be also included in the handout. And if you have any questions, you could reach Vani Gupta at vani.gupta@dc.gov. Next slide, please. Again, continued reminder for our enhanced secondary transition resource hub. You can find comprehensive information on secondary transition process and discover valuable resources within the hub. The resources were built upon 5 key strategies to support students with disabilities at every age. Every stage. And these 5 strategies are evidence-based practices, family partnership, self-determination, strategic collaboration, and professional learning. And I highly encourage everybody to check this advanced and enhanced resource hub for any additional information on secondary transition. And the link for this resource hub is also included in the handout. Next slide, please. And don't forget to subscribe to our OSSE Teaching and Learning Bulletin. This is the newsletter where you could find out more about the upcoming trainings and events that is hosted by Teaching and Learning. So the link for the TEL PD Bulletin is also included in the handout. So please do not hesitate and also share with your colleagues to subscribe to the monthly TEL PD Bulletin to stay informed for any upcoming sessions and resources and tips. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Buell. Okay, now for a few announcements and reminders.
Good morning, everybody. So OSSE is again hosting an early childhood community of practice. We're organizing this as an opportunity for participants to collaborate with other folks across around issues related to early childhood education. So education for students ages 3 through 5. Registration is open to anyone serving our 3 to 5 year olds in a special education program. Also, this replaces the early childhood working group. So we just changed the name essentially. So these sessions will occur the 4th Wednesday of each month, beginning February 28th, and they will be held via Microsoft Teams. Each session topic is based on the feedback our team has gathered from the working group survey. So those of you who completed that survey, thank you so much for your feedback. We've designed topics based on that feedback. So the first topic for February is family engagement strategies, and the Special Education Hub will be joining us for that session. We look forward to having you at that session. If you have any questions, please contact Dawn Hilton at dawn.hilton1@dc.gov. And someone just messaged to say that that link is not working. I will check that and provide the correct link in the chat before the end of today's webinar.
Thanks so much, Christy. All right, if by chance you happen to miss a webinar, be sure to visit our webpage, for the LEA Special Education Point of Contact monthly webinar series. A recording and a PDF version of the slides will always be available within 1 week of the live webinar. You can also watch previous webinars and download any training resources and materials. And our next webinar is scheduled for Wednesday, February 21st at 10 a.m. So please be sure to mark your calendars accordingly. All right, you know what to do. Take out your cell phones now, turn on your camera, and scan the QR code on your screen. You can also access the link to the survey at the bottom of this slide. Take a moment to take our survey. It will literally take you 3 minutes. We use your feedback to select specific content and other resources you would like for us to cover. In the meantime, we'll direct any additional questions that we've received in the chat. So let's go ahead and take a look and see what folks have to say and what their questions entail that actually might benefit the entire group. Christy, do we have any particular questions that will benefit the entire group today?
Oh yeah, we got lots of questions. Y'all keep sending them today. I have dropped the registration for the COP in the chat. I also see that when you sign up for the COP, so the COPs, you have to register for them individually because Teams does not allow for like registration for the entire series. And I know that's frustrating. We're working on determining like the best platforms for these sorts of meetings, including for this meeting. All right, we got a lot of questions and a lot of questions about special programs. I know that's a shock to everyone. I was very surprised. One question that we got is that someone has seen in the system that eligibility due dates have changed from 60 days from referral, or I'm sorry, it's changed from 60 days from consent to being 60 days from referral. I want to emphasize here that the requirement is to complete the eligibility determination within 60 days of parent consent. I had not seen that in the system. I've escalated that question to our CIO team, and I understand that there's already an OST ticket submitted on this, but I just want to clarify for everyone that is the requirement. If your LEA is seeing this, please submit an OST ticket so that we can look at it from our side. And if you look at the questions box, there's a couple of public responses that we've posted. So if you are submitting OST tickets and you are not getting a timely response, you can contact Michael Craig at michael.craig@dc.gov. And I know OST times are taking a long time. We're aware. We have gotten a lot of questions around how OSSE will handle timeliness measures based on a variety of issues within special programs. So generally speaking, I'm going to say that OSSE will consider system impacts when we are determining our monitoring protocols, okay? We don't have specifics about how all of those things are going to be handled at this time. It is something that we are working on, but we understand that everyone is continuing to have challenges with the system. So we're very intentional on how we are considering that and how we can adjust what data we're looking at and what rules we are applying to make sure that we are accounting for the issues that you guys are experiencing. I know that there's a lot of issues with document delivery right now. That is also something that we are looking at, and the parent non-response not being an option. There were some questions about licensure, and you can see all of these publicly in the questions because Rita has done a great job of responding publicly to most of these questions. Licensure information is not required for a related service provider to log services in special programs. They were earlier in the year, but we've changed that. So they should not be required to enter that information. But if there is licensure information in there, the related service provider can update their licensure information, but not the NPI. OSSE has that number, so providers cannot update it. But if you have an issue with your NPI number, submit an OST ticket, please. Yeah, there was a question. Rita responded publicly to this, but I do want to acknowledge that there's been an issue with services disappearing from an IEP between the draft and the final document. OSSE is aware. Thank you for submitting your OST tickets about that. And that is being escalated to PowerSchool for them to resolve. Oh, just about the PowerPoint for the webinar. Sometimes when you log into GoToWebinar, the handout section isn't there. It's happened to me before. Sometimes logging out and logging back in can make it appear. But if that ever happens to you, feel free to put a question in the questions box, and I'll email you a PDF of it directly. That's not a problem for us. Oh, someone asked if you can use DocuSign or upload signed documents. Yes, you can. The system supports that. The finalization date that would be generated is the date that you change the document status. It's not the date that you upload the document. So in this question, which you can see is public, so it says, can LEAs opt to use other tools such as DocuSign or upload the documents? Families are not signing because the email comes from a do not reply email. We've actually received some questions from like advocates in the system about this too. So I'm hearing two questions here. One, can LEAs use DocuSign? Yes. And then two, we need to do a better job of communicating with families and providing information to LEAs to share with families about what their expectations should be around this system. And that is something that we are working on, especially as it relates to both signatures and the parent portal. So OSSE will have more resources and supports available for you in the coming months around this. We've been waiting for the system to stabilize before we really push rolling out the parent portal.
Christy, can I add one thing here as far as using third-party tools? That's a great question. Even if you use a third-party DocuSign, or if they sign a paper document, you still have to upload that signed document, whatever that signature document, the PDF, whatever version you have, and you have to complete the document delivery. That's what returns all the information back to the student's profile. So even if you use a third-party system, the document delivery and setting your document to final is still a requirement to close it out. Thank you.
Thanks, Rita. Do we have any additional questions, Christy?
I think that's everything. We have many additional questions, but I think that's everything that is appropriate to be shared publicly. I do want to emphasize that I see a lot of questions and a lot of frustration about the system, and we see you and we hear you. And I know that things like reporting isn't working in a lot of ways, like the LEA P&P isn't working, and that is creating a lot of issues for you internally in your LEAs because it makes it impossible for you to plan. We hear you, we know, we see that you are frustrated, and we are working on those issues. And I know that that is not a sufficient answer, but I do want to acknowledge that we're not ignoring these questions.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that, Christy. The only thing I see, if you could drop it in the chat when you have a moment, Buell, is the link for the adolescent literacy training. If you could drop that in the chat for everyone. I noticed we don't have a live link there for that.
Okay, I can share.
Thank you so much. Okay, well, if we do not have any additional questions, take a few moments to wrap up your survey. We definitely appreciate you all providing us with your feedback. And with that, we've reached the end of today's webinar. We thank you all for joining us. We'll see you next month on the 21st. Make sure you download a copy of the handout Also, make sure you're referencing your questions, the responses that were received in the question section, and then also reference the chat for additional links. But with that, we appreciate it again, and thanks so much, everybody. Have a great day.